Hello, listener. Welcome to Political Bedlam number... God, who knows what we're on.
That's a good number.
I'm Chandler Ogle.
I'm Cass Wantland.
I'm Reese. Hi.
And we have a third new host that we are bringing today. Reese Smith. Say hi.
Hi. I already said hi.
Say it again. We like your voice.
Quit it.
Yeah, we're going to try and get up to 2 episodes a week, so we are bringing Reese in. That way, if I'm busy, Reese and Cass can do something.
Whoa, you never said I had to get to know him as a person.
Well, no, I'm more saying that just to cover all bases. It'll probably just be you or Reese being busy.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
I'm the Southern help taking your job.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, came a long way to take your job.
I did, yeah. It was a big fence.
The one where I found out I'm not enough, isn't it, Chandler?
Yep, so that's the name of the episode title. But we're going to talk some Star Wars later, and we're going to get to really play with the fact that I'm the one who's naming the episodes. I was thinking about naming it something about like why The Last Jedi was garbage, but then Cass brought up I can name it Why Cass Isn't Enough. I don't know, I get to really play with it because I'm the one who gets to name the episodes, so it's fun.
King Chandler sits upon his throne, naming episodes and children that he has like some sort of demagogue.
Yes, but like some sort of demagogue.
No, I'm sorry, yeah, you are a demagogue.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear. Well, we'll get to know Reese a little bit. I mean, you know me, I'm a inbred Trump pansy. You're a commie cuck.
Yeah.
So we need to. We got the right and the left. We got really.
And
I'm a soy boy over here.
We gotta find out where Reese is.
The right, the left, and the upset. I think that's where I'm at with it.
The upset.
I don't know. Just like generally unhappy with politics in general. I can't. There is no side to be taken anymore, right? And that's probably good because it forces you to think a little bit more. But I mean, at the point where people have been so used to just like throwing talking points at each other, and now we have to think like we don't know how to have conversations anymore. We just know how to have arguments, and that's
No, you're right.
That's
right.
unfortunate, just for the our culture as a whole.
So what you're saying, and this is my interpretation of what you're saying, we stopped having arguments. Everything is direct action from here on out.
No,
we take bottles to the windows.
No.
Cass is saying what he wants to hear.
that's what I heard through my filter.
I think that's fair. What I suppose I meant to say was that we need to get better at communicating as a society before we start taking any more serious action. I think we need to figure out what our priorities are first before actually throwing legislation at the wall just to see what sticks.
Or bottles.
When he said,
or bottles.
Oh yeah, okay, all right. I just want to be very clear. When I said bottles, I didn't mean metaphorically legislation.
Right.
I meant
bottles with gasoline
filled with alcohol and ribbon and fire.
Yeah.
No. I'm not super violent protesty kind of. I've gotten very little anarchist blood in me. I'm a coward at heart, right? I enjoy a peaceful society. So I'm not Viva la Revolucion by any means, but incremental change is good.
So, can we ask who you voted for in the last election?
Did you vote?
Yeah, technically I didn't vote because I got my registration messed up, but I would have definitely voted for Miss Clinton.
Okay.
That would have been just what I would have just to at the time it would have been to maintain the status quo. Which was
rather than jumping off into the unknown.
Right, yeah. Which I mean, and at this point, I don't know, I kind of like seeing what's happening. Honestly, I'm not stoked about the direction of the country, but it's making us think, right? I think this is something that was inevitable. Some kind of Trump character, right, was going to take the reins inevitably.
Okay, so I
think it would have been me when I was 36. If only Trump hadn't have popped our cherry, I could have been the one to come in. Go ahead, Cass.
So, okay, just to kind of get a clearer view of who you are as a person, I'm organizing my thoughts. You'll edit this. Clinton would have just been more of the same, wouldn't have changed anything, and at least with Trump, things are changing. Whether or not it's in the direction you want, it does mean that the Overton window is shifting. And that people are willing to accept more broad change.
Maybe. And yeah. I hope not. And I don't think that had Clinton become elected that things wouldn't have necessarily changed, right? Just because I do believe that the way that our process works is through small incremental changes, right? So it would have been more of the same, but to say that there was no change throughout Obama's tenure would be kind of crazy. And I think that she would have fostered more of the same change, which ultimately would have been better for our country as a whole. Having said that, The way our political, like, I guess, game seems to work is like an ebb and flow, right? Like, you have to have so long of a conservative and then so long of a liberal to kind of balance things out. And so I think that if we had too much longer of, like, kind of liberal, like, head of our country, then, like, the citizenry would have backlashed even harder. And then, I don't know, something worse than Trump could have come up eventually.
I think that's interesting. I think
Could have been you.
it could have been Chandler, everybody.
The
So thank God it's
oligarchy.
Trump. The oligarchy.
Yeah.
So I think that if Clinton had won, nothing
Maybe
would
it
have
was a-
changed. It would have been the backlash to her presidency would have been tremendous. She would not have been popular.
No, because like that's
Yeah.
the thing. You gotta remember how many people hate Hillary Clinton, right?
Yeah,
like,
no.
She was the worst person to lead the Democratic Party at the time. I think just because like there's just so much, and I don't get it. I didn't get it. My mother hates Hillary Clinton though, just because.
He's doing cursing. We'll edit it out. We're
Okay.
trying to get James Langford on the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, like my mother hated Hillary Clinton, and I never quite understood why. Just because the only interaction that I had really like in terms of like growing up with Hillary Clinton anyway was that she got cheated on by her husband when she was like in the Oval Office, and that for whatever reason made so many conservative women and men, I guess, just hate her with a passion because she didn't leave her husband or whatever, and that was like the conservatively like right thing to do at the time. I don't know, but like all this ridiculous vitriol that was held towards Hillary Clinton, like that wouldn't have gone anywhere, right? And
well, I think it went a little bit further than that. I think a lot of it was also Bill Clinton's pattern of abuse, which is hypocritical when you look at anything related to Trump.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
But at the time, it wasn't because Trump wasn't necessarily the person running. I mean, there were valid. The people were saying like, just she's an enabler and all this, and it would have held water if the Republicans hadn't elected someone like Trump.
There's the ish just because like there was a reason like they called him Teflon Don though, right? Like that name was there for like he like you can say whatever you want about him, it doesn't matter because everything. He's like Schrodinger's cat, right? Like everything is true and not true about him at the same time. Like I don't know, he's done everything and nothing.
I think he tapped into just media distrust that was building after 8 years, on the right at least, media distrust of, I don't know, leftist, more mainstream outlets that it was building for 8 years of the Obama administration. I think that was one of the big factors that allowed him to come in and win the election.
I mean, calling CNN leftist, though, I mean, all of this is because of false information.
Right, CNN leans left.
I mean,
I wouldn't say they're leftists, but they lean left.
He's cashing in on like 30 years worth of talking points though, right? Just because like he's had this like conservative-ish mindset, but he's lived in New York the entire time, right? So
he's not a real conservative.
No, not at all. But I mean, he's got what would be considered a conservative mindset by people who live in New York, right? Which to the Midwest is nothing, right? I mean, that he doesn't give a f***.
He was pro-business. That was the only thing you could honestly say about him before he ran for office.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I mean, ish. I mean, I would
say that again.
He was pro-business.
Before he ran. Once he started running on all this weird jingoist
and I mean,
nativism.
Like, if we actually really felt like doing our own research, I don't think we would even be comfortable calling him pro-business, right? Because he's a bad businessman.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, like,
absolutely. He's pro his business.
Right, he's pro his business. And I don't even think.
And he's bad at that, too.
He's bad at overall business. I think one of the things, and I've read people talk about this, even people who say that he's bad at business, he's great at branding. He's really good at branding.
Sure, yeah.
And
but
that's
I mean,
a very small aspect of business overall.
Right, yeah, like we should just hire an advertising firm for America then, right? Like not necessarily like if we want to rebrand our country, then let's
get J.J. Abrams.
No, let's get Arnold Schwarzenegger to run for president, right? We'll have J.J. Abrams as his vice president, and then he'll just do his Oval Office presentations in front of a green screen, and then we'll have helicopters just surrounding him. Like that'll make the rest of the world.
To quote Cass, I don't hate it.
It's interesting you brought up Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's an excellent article I read, and I can't find it for the life of me, that talked about how in an alternate universe where people who aren't born in the country are allowed to run for president, this is the year that Arnold Schwarzenegger would have run for president.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of appeal that Donald Trump has.
Yeah, no, just this larger than life figure that we all kind of trust because we've seen him in the light for so many decades now, right? And he just hasn't died yet, I guess, or done anything that would he hasn't crashed any planes into any buildings, right? Like that makes us trust them more than the government. So let's pick a celebrity that
I picked The Rock. I've picked The Rock since the beginning.
Yeah, I'm still I like Schwarzenegger just because he actually has legitimate political clout now.
Regardless, yeah, then
Like he's run a big state.
Not for nothing.
Right,
Yeah, he was
really
governor. He was not just a politician. He was an executive. And there is something to be said about having actual experience in government, which is why I think it's nuts that Hillary lost. Because regardless of where you stand politically, you're looking at the most qualified candidate to ever run for the office.
Absolutely. Like
now, you can disagree with her. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
like her experience.
When presidents have gotten out of office, people ask them what was it like, and they said it was nothing like I ever could have expected, and it took me a while to get my footing. She would have known from day one what to do because of her experience. Whether you like what she would have done is up for interpretation.
Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, there is historical precedent for that. Nixon was someone who spent a long time in government, and minus the impeachment scandal, actually did a lot of really good things.
Yeah, true.
He was overall, I think, good president, and it was a similar thing. He was in government his whole life, and it was zero to very little transition.
When he extended the Vietnam War, that was really cool.
Well, I mean, if we want to pick everything from the resume, I'd say opening up relations with China was a really big deal.
If you look at it from those terms, though, right? Like being in the position of power, changes you from the person you are going into it, right? And I mean, you can't. I'm not saying what he did was right or wrong per se, but I don't know. He did it to maintain his power. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is really messed up.
It is really messed up. But having said that. The stuff, the positive things that he was so paranoid, right? There was this overwhelming sense of paranoia that was completely unfounded.
It was weird. The whole Watergate scandal, I was actually doing some research on it the other day. The scandal that he cheated on to win, he won that by 500 electoral votes.
Yeah,
he won it in a landslide.
There was no reason
to cheat.
Yeah.
Well, he tried to spoil Johnson's Vietnam peace talks, and he purposely extended the war in order to become president. Oh, have you all not heard about this?
I knew about it. I was trying to put together. So it went Johnson.
That was how he got his second term.
Johnson, then Nixon, and then Ford?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gerald Ford. It was fun to imitate. If you all haven't imitated Gerald Ford, I know there's a lot of right material with Nixon. Don't overlook Ford. He's fun to imitate.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's so fun to do. Nixon on Futurama was I'd vote for Nixon's head. I really would. I mean,
was Ford immediately after Nixon?
Yeah. He was the vice president.
Was it a 3-year term?
Okay.
It was a 2-year term.
He won that big election, and then Ford finished out the rest of his term.
Yeah.
So.
Ford did not win re-election.
He didn't win re-election?
No. Ford was one term, and then it was Carter.
So that would make him the shortest tenured president then, yeah?
Well, I mean...
Yeah.
No, the guy died a month in office.
Oh
my gosh, what is his name?
William Henry Harrison.
William Henry Harrison, who died in a month.
He got pneumonia at his inauguration speech.
Oh, okay. Well,
Of course, it was back then, so it was the early 1800s, so they probably tried some witchcraft to fix it, and it didn't work.
The bloodletting and leeches.
Yeah. Hey, don't diss bloodletting until you try it.
It's still,
Yeah, so we kind of talked about all the boring stuff, Reese's political views and life or death political issues. Super boring.
Yeah.
We really need to get to the most important thing in our society right now, and it's just why the newest Star Wars movie was so bad.
This is so topical and so of the moment. I'm glad we're talking about it now.
We should point out the newest Star Wars movie is The Last Jedi, not Han Solo.
The newest linear series Star Wars movie.
Not Solo, which was a disappointment in its own right.
I liked Solo.
Did you?
It was okay.
I feel like there are a lot of things that needed to be addressed about Solo that just were completely ignored.
It was too lighthearted.
It was very lighthearted. In addition, there was no talk of the life debt. Right, the Wookiee life debt, that didn't come up in conversation at all.
You know what? My sister at the end of it was spoiler alert, he got him out of the cage. She's like, well, she got freedom from the cage, and then we both looked at each other. It's yeah, but Chewie was seconds away from killing him. So instantly, that's helping each other out.
Yeah, no, it's
not a life debt.
It's a mutually beneficial thing, right? He didn't save his life. I don't know. It was that. And the thing is, they expound upon the Wookiee life debt as a cultural thing in the video game so much that it's almost I don't understand what Disney is doing with the Star Wars universe right now, just because they can outsource so much knowledge to neckbeard nerds who will just sit and fact check all of these Star Wars scenes for hours for free and make it like so canonically sound, and they're not doing it. Like there's just so much free information at like the producer's fingertips that they're not using.
They're in the luxury of the position of being able to pick and choose. I mean, they invalidated most of the EU, the extended universe.
Well, now let's back up for a second. I haven't seen Solo. I can't speak to Solo. It's the lowest grossing Star Wars movie. Disney has made 4 Star Wars movies at this point. 3 of them are 3 of the highest grossing films of all time. Now, whether or not you like The Last Jedi, clearly they're doing something that makes people happy.
Well, I mean, ish. I mean, does that make it good art? I mean, the Big Bang Theory is the highest rated comedy on television. Highest rated comedy ever. Doesn't make it a good comedy.
That's infuriating.
Yeah.
That angers me on levels. No, and
That's
you're
all I
absolutely
feel about
right.
Jedi.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right.
You want to talk about like grossing films? It's really about branding at this point, right? Like they're just cashing in on the Star Wars / Disney name, and I don't know, like if they keep cranking out Star Wars movies like this, like they're going to kill the franchise, and like they're not going to continue to be the top grossing movies. Like,
I'd like to point out 2 things. First, that the backlash against Solo and people not going to see was a direct backlash against The Last Jedi. And the second,
I disagree.
Yeah.
Second,
I disagree
is
entirely.
Really?
whether for Solo's low box office or other reasons, Disney has, as of this moment, put all anthology Star Wars story movies on hold.
Yeah.
That has not been officially announced by Disney.
Really?
I'm a buzzkill, I know.
No, that's fine.
I thought it had been. I thought it started out as
Because I
rumors.
want the Obi-Wan movie.
Yeah, we all do.
We all want the Obi-Wan movie. We all want even if you hated the prequels, you loved what's his name's portrayal of Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Did you hate the prequels?
Was it Ben Kingsley? It was Ben Kingsley. Yeah.
No, Ben Kingsley.
No, it was,
no. It was. I wish it was Ben Kingsley now.
Sir Alec Guinness.
No, that was the original.
Yeah.
Han Solo. Alec Guinness. The new one, Trainspotting.
When they remake 4, 5, and 6, they're gonna have Ben Kingsley as
Okay.
Obi-Wan.
That's
maybe
delightful.
So. You have to grow some hair.
No, what's his name?
Who?
The guy from Trainspotting who played him in the prequels.
Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay,
Thank
okay.
you. What were we talking about?
I think you got lost thinking about how dreamy Ewan McGregor
I
is.
did.
I know I do.
Thinking about how dreamy Ewan McGregor is.
I know I do.
What, especially from Trainspotting when he's preposterously skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just dives into that toilet and is like swimming around. And it's like,
Oh,
I really liked him as Lumiere, actually, in Beauty and the
I
Beast.
still haven't seen that.
Really?
I've heard it's really good.
It's adorable. It
It's
really is.
really good. I was nervous at first, but it was so well done. It has me excited for the live action Lion King. So.
Yeah. No.
Oh, the live action Lion King is gonna blow us
And
away.
Dumbo. And Dumbo.
You got live action
Dumbo?
They're
You haven't heard about it? Pause.
Cass is gonna make me watch a trailer. We're gonna pause
Yeah,
real quick.
that's-
Okay, we're back. I just watched the Dumbo trailer and have already scheduled my time off at work so I can spend a couple days crying after I watch it.
Yeah. I mean, like Danny DeVito as Dumbo, like easily the best casting choice that Disney has made
Easily the best casting choice.
since Tony Stark.
Yeah, Danny DeVito will be a perfect Dumbo.
Well, in every Tim Burton movie that Danny DeVito's in, he wears a top hat, and I saw this great meme that had a picture of him as the penguin, him from Big Fish, and him from the Dumbo trailer, and it's Danny DeVito's agent saying, "Danny, Tim Burton called. He wants to know," and then Danny DeVito interrupts the agent and says, "Fine, no, don't worry about it. I'm getting my top hat. I'll meet him wherever we're going."
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, that sounds accurate. That
Yeah.
sounds accurate.
As long as the rest of the It's Always Sunny crew makes a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
I need to see
They
Glenn
should be
Howard.
the crows.
They should be the crows. Oh my
They
God.
would be the perfect
Best
crows.
races. They just come in with like drawn 6-packs on it.
Yes, but like the Birds of War.
Yeah.
Have you all seen the
The Crows of
episode?
War.
Where they,
Don't even ask me. Have I
That's a
seen the
dumb
episode?
question.
Yes.
Where the musical one?
Oh, that is the newest season, which I've only seen half. But yes, I have seen the new. I have seen that episode.
What?
Yeah.
What are the rules? What are the rules?
Okay, clearly, I've got some catching up to do.
What is that called? The episode is called something really provocative.
It's like, isn't it a pun off The Wiz?
Yeah, but isn't that the one where the gang like you go into black people's bodies for a day or
Yes.
something? Yeah.
When you just turn black and you can't change back, well, you gotta go and find out the rules.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's
Delightful.
They just finished the season. I
It's
think.
like a spin on Get Out, or
I'm not sure.
It's not a spin on anything, which is kind of the joke. Because the whole episode they're trying to figure out, what is this? Is this an outer body situation? The joke is it's a play on nothing.
Okay.
But they do parody songs from The Wiz.
Yeah.
So it's really funny.
okay.
Well, let's get back on topic. We start talking about Disney's stellar lineup, which extends to, of course, everything that isn't Star Wars.
And Disney owns basically everything now.
They do.
The Fox deal went through.
Did it go through?
Really? So they have Spider-Man now?
Was that
they
the
have
other
X-Men.
They have X-Men, yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
That's pretty much everyone except Cass's favorite character who no one cares about.
Yeah, no one cares about Namor, Universal. Jerks.
Namor the Submariner.
Yeah, no one cares about him.
Marvel's off-brand Aquaman.
He came first. Namor came first.
His name is Namor, though.
His name is Roman backwards, and that's awesome and regal, and he's a badass. And he's the first mutant, and he's got tiny wings on his feet, and he looks better in a Speedo than any of us ever will.
Yeah, but if he'd been named Aquaman, he would have been more popular.
I guarantee, though, he does not look better than Jason Momoa on his feet.
Yeah,
well, Jason Momoa looks better in anything than anyone will ever look in anything.
Yeah, no, he could look better in a fat suit than I could.
I need more tribal tattoos. That's what I need.
I don't think you do, but
I think you do. That's the only thing separating you from Jason Momoa is the tribal tattoo.
It's at least a really big step closer.
Yeah, you're basically him at that point.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure, do it.
Maybe longer hair.
Maybe longer hair. Maybe longer hair.
Only maybe.
Yeah.
When I met Reese,
Actually, yeah.
When I met Reese, you had the fro thing going on, but right before I met you, you'd had long hair.
Yeah, no, it was.
You had really long hair.
Like,
It was very pretty.
Oh, when you met me, I had it down to my shoulders.
Yep. When I met Cassie, I had that.
Oh, okay.
No, I've never had hair knowing Chandler.
Okay.
I was under the impression that Cass just never had hair. Like he was a baby that just started out and he only had.
Came out bald.
He had facial hair. He came out with facial hair and just no regular hair.
I look like that professor who's too tired to care. that's my
You actually
look.
do look a lot like my old logic professor.
But
really?
if we're gonna talk doppelgangers for looks and voice, does he not look? I mean, picture him without the facial hair. Like he looks like Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, actually.
And he sounds. Somebody's brought this up, and he sounds like David Cross. If you listen to him, he sounds like a David Cross with a deeper voice.
Okay.
Thank God I have a partner, because try selling me to someone as he looks like Vincent D'Onofrio and sounds like David Cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do sound like David Cross.
I do sound like David Cross, and I'm okay with that.
Do the high pitch voice because he did.
I do sound like David Cross.
How crazy is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's the truth. This has never been Cass Woman. It's always been David Cross.
Okay.
I met David Cross.
David Cross is just so unpopular.
He wanted to method act on an Oklahoman podcast that not many people listen to. I took him up on it.
I mean, everyone needs their practice, so. And David Cross, more than most.
Yes.
His stand-up, though, like...
he's weird, but he's got...
But I love him. He's very poignant, like, and he's gotten more crazy. Like, him, like, he's I don't know, I feel like he's kind of like the white Dave Chappelle, right? Like, he says basically whatever...
Hold on, I just want, can you repeat what you just said?
He's like a white Dave Chappelle.
Who is?
David Cross.
David Cross is like a...
White Dave Chappelle.
Alright, you heard it here first, folks.
Cass just wanted to put a fine point on that.
All right. So explain that point. That's interesting.
Okay. The point being that he's very good at doing comedic tiptoeing over. Like, okay, so he's really good at dancing around subjects and saying basically whatever he wants without upsetting anyone. He's very good at going over like social tripwires, right? And getting his point across while staying completely serious about what he's saying and being funny at the same time. And
okay. So mic issues. I don't know why it's just stopping and pausing. I'm a horrible audio producer. I just want to throw that out there. We just talked for about 10 minutes about David Cross. And
we broke down his entire career for you.
You might have missed the greatest about 10 minutes of podcasting that there's ever been.
We have David Cross here with us.
Keep an eye on that. Make sure it's still moving.
It just keeps that little blue.
You gotta make the line go. But yeah, well, that actually allows us to not. Because we started talking about Star Wars, and then we just started talking about other stuff for like 10 minutes. Yeah. So we can go back to Star Wars. We can break it down. We have two rational people here who did not like the movie, and then we have Cass.
All right, settle down.
So, like, I am genuinely curious what you liked about the movie. Right?
Talk about The Last Jedi.
Yeah. Like, how does this appropriately tie into the rest of the Star Wars saga for you?
Because the Star Wars saga is about the fight between good and evil, and The Last Jedi is about how sometimes, even if you're in the right, you fail. Star Wars, the prequel trilogy, the good fails. In the original trilogy, good prevails. And we don't know what's going to happen in this trilogy. We assume that good's going to win, but The Last Jedi reminds us that if we lose hope, if we stop looking at our goal and why we're fighting, if we don't understand what we're fighting for, you'll never be able to succeed and there's no point.
Right, but I feel like at this point, a lot of people are fighting for a good movie.
Yeah.
And that's not what they're getting.
All right, so you thought it failed not only conceptually but as a film.
I think we both agree with that motif you just described, but the execution left a lot to be desired.
I feel like there is so much knowledge that like they're not drawing upon. Right, like I genuinely don't see.
That's what makes Star Wars so tricky, is because we all come to Star Wars. No one can watch Star Wars purely. We're all coming to Star Wars
with your own preconceived notions.
Preconceived notions, cultural conceptions,
right.
or...
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like Star Wars has never been like a mind-blowing storyline, right? It's never had crazy acting. Like, what Star Wars got its name for was it's ahead of its time CG... Not CGI, but special effects, right? That was why it was so crazy whenever the original trilogy came out. That's why... Even the second trilogy was so popular. It was just like, and people crapped on it for its acting, for its storytelling, but like it was at its essence a beautiful movie, right? That told a story that everyone knew how it basically played out already, and I don't know, like it's just something that was very tried and true. And now Disney seems to be trying to like upend everything, I guess, by like trying something way too new, by introducing a lot of new stuff that they don't need to.
Well, wouldn't that mean that they're not being the vicious money grabbing whores that you're accusing them of being? If they're doing something
they still are. I would posit in saying that people complained The Force Awakens was too similar. It was basically a remake of New Hope, and they tried something drastically different. They're still going. They're still money-grabbing whores. They still want our money.
No, that's fair. Yeah, no
they
matter what,
try something radically different because
Disney wants your money.
Yeah,
that's fair. Okay, but let's talk about The Force Awakens. Did you all hate it?
Not as much, no.
No, I didn't like it, but I understood that they were rebooting it for a new generation.
Yeah.
That wasn't me.
I felt like there was some pretty clear direction there, right? Like you saw some setup that was like going to potentially come to fruition in what became The Last Jedi, right? And
setup that The Last Jedi ignored a lot.
Right, completely ignored. Like,
which is so beautiful.
No, some of it just doesn't make sense. Like,
like the whole Snoke scene. Still, like no one has come up with like a good reasoning. And like, look, here's like, regardless of what show you watch, like in just about every medium of entertainment, if there are questions left unanswered, someone somewhere will answer that. And I have yet to find like a decent reasoning for why Snoke ever existed in the first place.
It's because there's not enough source material.
And why he is now dead, right? So that is just a completely fruitless, useless character that came about basically to lead the most powerful faction in the Star Wars universe ever. And like he's just like this nameless, faceless leader that came out of nowhere, was killed for nothing, and we have no backstory to this.
They created him as a pilot to put Kylo Ren into the position of being the supreme leader, so to speak.
Sure,
but, I mean,
but like
he was infinitely more compelling.
Right, like I just don't understand. Like,
what, you think Snoke was more compelling than
Kylo?
Snoke never did anything.
The air of mystery makes it more compelling.
Which is what made it more compelling, right? Like Kylo Ren was pretty like cut and dry. Like he's got weird emotions.
I like Kylo Ren. I like Adam Driver, but the fact that we didn't know as much about Snoke made you what's going on with Snoke?
Like why is Kylo Ren?
You don't have those for Kylo Ren.
Yeah, but that's not storytelling. That's a mystery box. That's
sure.
There's no effort to Snoke.
And that's fair. That's fair. But now, for now and forever, that box will remain closed.
Well,
right?
they might explain who he is in the.
They will. They invalidated the EU, the extended universe, and they're still filling in their new universe with new novels, new games. They will probably talk about who Snoke is, but the fact that they didn't really address that before, like a lot of times we got into the prequels.
But that's not what Star Wars is about.
No,
Star Wars
is what it's been about.
If anything,
we knew what the prequels were going to be because there were books about it beforehand. Like the hardcore nerds knew what the prequels were because that material had been covered.
Yes, and we love the prequels because of nostalgia, but they're bad.
No,
the prequels are bad.
The prequels get a lot of flack, man.
I think that they got their job done. If anything, and like here's what I would chalk up like the newest like trilogy to. It's just basically poor planning, right? Like I think with the second trilogy, you already had the story told, right? So there was nothing there that you really had to do. First trilogy, George Lucas, that was his baby. He probably already had all 3 movies written before he even started on the first one, right? And now they're just kind of making up the last 3 as they go along. They don't have anything, like, they don't have a concrete storyline yet. There's nothing, this isn't
They could have picked out any of the EU's storylines and made it the next one.
Right, exactly. And they just, like, they haven't, there's no real fourth, no one is a cohesive team here, right, to actually stay together. Like, there are so many individual money-grubbing whores trying to, like, take as much as they can and make the Star Wars their own personal universe now, that there isn't enough, like, just teamwork getting together and, like, making the Star Wars for everyone.
Yeah,
right?
but the EU stuff, is that really filmable? And
Some
also,
of it. The EU was a cluster. Like, there was a lot of contradictory stuff.
If we can make the Clone Wars series, I'm gonna say just about anything is filmable now.
well,
That's fair. Let's since we plan on doing this in multiple episodes, we plan on bringing our friend Lacey on, who has a Hux tattoo, so she will very much love to talk about The Last Jedi. We plan on bringing our first guest, Jeff Levy, back on because he wanted to talk about it. Was going to try and text him before this, but it was too late notice. We will talk about this with multiple guests, but what I kind of want to nail down before we come to them is me and Reese should throw just a bunch of our criticisms of the movie at the wall.
Yeah.
At you.
oh, I like this.
Yeah, and you need to decide toward the end. We'll probably talk about it off the mic. What you thought were the most valid critiques. Again, we will bring them to Lacey and Jeff, who are both fans of The Last Jedi, and we'll see what they have to say.
And, like, to be fair, when I was watching The Last Jedi in the theater, I actually did enjoy it, right? Like, I was very excited to see everything that was going to happen because I knew that, like, the conversations that it was going to spark were going to be interesting. What I was, I think, more upset by was the fact that basically every other Star Wars movie that I've ever seen, like, I can think about it for several weeks and months afterwards and still kind of dissect it and pick apart, like, little things about it. And then, like, whenever I see I think about The Last Jedi, I'm just kind of confused.
Have you rewatched it? Have you rewatched it since you saw it in theaters?
No,
I've rewatched it once. It is better when you rewatch it. It's still not good in my mind, but it is better when you rewatch it. Like, when you're away from the theater and you aren't just, like, seeing it for the great visual effects and you actually have to pay attention to the story.
Okay.
It is a little bit better, but it is not great. But let's throw some things at Cass and watch him try to defend them.
That sounds kind of...
Bring
Just so many passive-aggressive things towards Cass.
So why is Mark Hamill just basically playing the Joker in The Last Jedi?
That is nonsense. His characterization is nothing like the Joker. I need statistics to back that crazy statement up.
Okay.
That's nonsense, and I reject the premise of the question.
That's fair.
Next.
I will rephrase the question. Do you feel, though, Mark Hamill's character has deviated from who he was?
There are 2 ways to look at the characterization of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi.
Has he gone crazy because he was in isolation for the last, like, 30 years?
Well, I mean, that's part of it. Let me explain the way I watch it. The way I watch Star Wars specifically. There's extra textual stuff, and then there's just textual stuff.
Okay.
Extra textual means you're taking your experiences and what you know about the film from outside of the film itself. And textual means you're just looking at the movie as itself. Okay. Textually, it makes sense because we know that he has suffered a great loss. He, and as we find out, he betrayed his own instincts. He betrayed his Jedi code and attacked Kylo, and he feels great guilt over it. And he isolates himself because he doesn't trust himself. And I think, a character doesn't just win for forever. That's not enjoyable. A character has to fail. And Luke had a huge failure, and that's why he's put himself into sequester. Now, if you look at it extra textually, Luke is George Lucas, obviously. I mean, that's the most obvious thing that you could possibly say. And who's George Lucas now? He's a bumbling old man who hates Star Wars, which is exactly what Luke Skywalker is in The Last Jedi. He is Luke Skywalker.
I would like to point out, and this has not been verified, but people suspect that it is true. Recently, William Shatner took to 4chan, which is a hilarious sentence.
That is okay. Hold on, no. We need to say that again.
Yeah, no. William, he confirmed it on Twitter. He posted in 4chan on 4chan Movies saying, "It's me, Bill Shatner." And he wrote this whole post, and he later confirmed on Twitter, yes, this was me.
Wow.
And he talked about how Mark Hamill contacted him and was just completely broken down about how they treated his character.
Okay. So
whether Mark Hamill actually did that, remains to be seen, but Will Shatner did actually say that.
I wouldn't be surprised, but does that really matter?
It matters to the people who grew up on the franchise and the people who have given it enough money and resources to still be a thing 40 years in the future.
I don't think that's important when it comes to enjoying a story. I mean, I still love Harry Potter, and J.K. Rowling is an idiot.
Well, I mean,
That's,
you're a grown man. Are you still a big fan of Harry Potter?
I've only read 7 books. It's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Let's not do this.
They're my 7 books.
Harry
Chandler.
Potter and the magical whatever. Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's fair. Getting to.
So no, I don't. I think that that's a very natural progression for Luke's character. So next, bring it on. Chandler, your turn.
I talk to people. Save it. Sorry, I hate to.
Go ahead.
Reese had this moment of inspiration. I talk to people all the time. I remember of a and this is a nice little play on words. Star Wars Sith posting on Facebook.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah, Sith posting is great. And I frequently not I would say stump Last Jedi fans, but they just really can't posit. Like they can't really explain this. Okay, so the Canto Bight scene was just an absolute atrocity. We obviously said a second ago that the whole thing was just this ham-fisted, on-the-nose social commentary about war profiteering, and it lasted way too long. Even the Last Jedi fans agree that, the ones that I've talked to online at least, that it lasted way too long.
We should have rewatched this before.
We should have. I rewatched it about a month ago, so it's relatively fresh for me. But you remember like they go there and then like Rose is like, I want to take my fist and smash it through this whole beautiful city, and just like they just talk about how do you think these people got so rich? They got it by selling weapons, and it's just like this. It's just this commentary on war profiteering and the evils of war-based capitalism. And I mean, I don't mind social commentary in my movies. Yeah, we've got our saying commie
Kind
stuff.
of the same thing, right?
All right, and
Hey, there's Reese. I knew his hair wasn't red for no reason.
Yeah,
commie light. Yeah, no, it was.
I like guns. I do like guns. Oh, go ahead and say that. Just like what we're
Cass likes guns.
Cass likes guns.
Cass is left. Like leftists. I'm on a tangent now,
yeah.
but leftists don't hate guns. Liberals hate guns.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. It comes to like a full circle, and it's like we meet in the middle. But anyway.
It's like Lady in the Tramp. Finally.
Exactly. Yeah.
We eat the same piece of
we
spaghetti.
eat the noodle. Yeah. We've identified a place that an issue that we can talk about to both Lacey and Jeff, because I mean even you weren't that crazy about the Canto Bight scene.
The Canto Bight scene bummed me out for a lot of reasons. Again, most of them aesthetic. As far as the purpose of the scene being in the movie, I think it's great.
I'd like to point out it took up nearly a fifth of the entire movie. Maybe more than that. It took a long time.
Yeah, because the movie's about failure. And these characters...
Ryan Johnson embodies it.
No, that everyone fails. Even the villains fail.
Okay.
It's about, like, personal loss. And...
Is this loss?
No.
I submit that it is.
Like, is this movie like the embodiment of Jar Jar Binks as a character?
It is. Rose is Jar Jar reincarnated.
Okay, because there was that really crazy theory that Jar Jar Binks was like the ultimate Lord of the Sith for a little bit, right? Like that.
He was. They basically confirmed it.
Yeah, and I do believe that like that was some very like forethought subversive stuff that George Lucas put in there because he really appreciates the archetype of like the all powerful Joker. Right, which I think he kind of sees himself.
Where are you getting that?
They basically confirmed that at the beginning George Lucas intended Jar Jar, like Yoda was at first. I mean, it was only for a couple minutes, but Yoda was this goofy swamp creature.
Right.
Then ended up being this powerful Lord of the Light Side.
Yeah, and that's what
they
he originally...
Right. The backlash to Jar Jar and the Phantom Menace made him go away from that direction.
Yeah. And if you notice, like in the second one, like Jar Jar Binks is the only character that throughout like the 1, 2, and 3 consistently rose in ranks and like
he gave Palpatine his power.
Right, no, and I don't disagree there, but I don't think he was ever intended to be a Dark Jedi. I think he was supposed to be a useful idiot.
No, well, I don't know. I do believe that his intentions were a little bit deep.
Did I say Dark Jedi instead of Sith? What am I, from the 70s?
Well, Dark Jedis are a thing. I need to search that. I need to find a source for that. But I do believe that at one point was George Lucas's original.
I think he wanted him to be a larger character, but I don't, because he is the most important player in the original trilogy. Because you're right, he does give Palpatine his power, unwittingly the Emperor.
Additionally there were a lot of things that like Sidious and Jar Jar Binks grew up on the same planet, right? Like Naboo, right? And I read a bunch of lore saying that Darth Sidious's father was actually a really big banker on Naboo, and they did a lot of trade with the Gungans.
I didn't know Palpatine was from Naboo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah, Palpatine's from Naboo. And so, in theory, like, they grew up together, right? And Palpatine did a lot of, like, his training there. And there's this theory that Palpatine's master, once he died, like, once Palpatine killed his master, right? His master transferred his consciousness into a Gungan there on Naboo so that he could continue following his previous people around, that being Jar Jar Binks. And so he basically kind of like grew up alongside him and then became friends with Darth Sidious. That's why he's basically his right-hand person whenever Darth Sidious ascends to his council seat. And that's also why there are a bunch of really weird scenes in The Phantom Menace where Jar Jar Binks pulls off some really crazy, like, just jumps and, like, dodges and stuff that he should not survive.
Yeah, I've watched some of that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and, like, there's just things that, like, the CGI programmers would not have put in there unintentionally, right? Like, it's just stuff that it's not.
It costs way too much money.
Yeah, it's
to
just
waste
not
on
an accident to, like, to throw them in there. Just because.
Have you seen The Phantom Menace? It's mostly wasted money on nonsense.
Well, yeah, I mean, not
Heresy, get out of this house.
Not with a couple of the Jar Jar being specific scenes. Like he just does some stuff that only Jedi can do, canonically speaking.
I think that's a really neat theory. I think it's fascinating, and I think it's really fun to talk
And
about.
I do think that
I
this
don't
theory,
believe it.
I do think that this theory was only like possible to come to fruition throughout the Phantom Menace. I think that because Jar Jar Binks he got so much backlash that they abandoned this theory in the second one, and they kind of held to it because you see him in like 2 or 3 scenes in the Clone Wars where he's like in a suit, he's next to Padme, like he's always like there, right? And like they're hoping that, like, I think George Lucas is kind of hoping that he can like shove him back in somehow, but like just because he got so much backlash, they abandoned that story like that.
I hope his dying words confirm all that.
I would love that because like Darth Jar Jar forever, man. Like I really love.
I was very convinced.
Yeah, no, and like I'm still pretty just because like that's what upsets me about like this thing as a whole, right? Like this was one man's beautiful, fantastic brain baby that has now been bastardized by so many other people.
Oh my god, I'm in a room full of Jar Jar apologists. That's wonderful.
Well,
now this is pod racing.
Now this is podcasting.
Oh, that would have been so much better.
You should have said that, man.
Yeah, no, I should have.
It
might be episode name.
Now this is podcasting. Yeah,
that'd be pretty good too. My favorite scene from all of the Star Wars movies, all of them, is the pod racing scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the way, like...
You hated The Phantom Menace, but it has your favorite scene?
I don't hate The Phantom Menace. It's bad. I can like something and acknowledge that it's bad.
Okay. Well,
I'm
texting Liam Neeson right now.
Do you like The Last Jedi better than The Phantom Menace?
The Last Jedi might be my second or third favorite Star Wars movie.
Literally, he's a heretic. Like,
wow. Like, why is The Phantom Menace so bad? Like, in hindsight.
Well, the story makes no sense. The acting is bad. The special effects are not passable. It's dull. I just don't... I remember watching it and leaving the theater, and I was really excited, but in the back of my head, I was like, that wasn't good, and I'm not old enough, nor do I have the vocabulary to explain why.
I'm so triggered I'm convulsing on the floor right now.
He is. It's true. He looks like a limp fish.
You'll be okay. Just drink more beer.
Thank you. I will.
Yeah, no, all 3 of the prequels are bad.
I mean, and
no, there's not. Revenge of the Sith is one of the best
Revenge
movies.
of the Sith is the worst!
No, it is absolutely not. Revenge of the Sith tied the prequels together perfectly. I thought Revenge of the Sith is up there.
I think that was the last movie where they were like they held to the integrity of George Lucas's idea.
To me, it goes Empire.
Yeah, let's do this. Hold on. We are going to list our favorite Star Wars movies in order from favorite to least favorite.
Well, no, let's just do top 3.
Oh, wait, top three.
All right, I'm going to go Empire, number 1, A New Hope, second, and Rogue One, third. So how do you go, Cass?
Empire, Hope, Jedi. Last Jedi. Oh shit, you can't say Jedi anymore and people know what you're talking about.
True.
I do hate The Last Jedi now. It ruined the way I name Star Wars movies. Never mind. I'm out. Last Jedi sucks.
Revenge of the Sith, number 1. Empire Strikes Back, number 2. Phantom Menace, number 3.
Interesting. I put Revenge of the Sith as my 4. I really liked Revenge of the Sith. Did you like Rogue One?
Yeah, I did. If we're talking those, I would probably replace Phantom Menace with Rogue One, actually.
I thought Rogue One was just excellent.
Yeah.
Rogue One is so good.
Yeah, we agree on that. Like,
Yeah, we all. I think
you're
we're
not
all.
hopeless.
I think Rogue One was a fantastic standalone movie, and if they continue making like little in between things, because there are a lot of like that's what pisses me. Like there are so many unanswered questions in the Star Wars universe that they have the ability to address now.
Yeah, but do you want them answered? Isn't that kind of the fun?
Yeah.
Like having comic books and being able to talk about it on forums and stuff.
Well, okay, so look, like you can have multiple stories like kind of conversed in the same movie, right? And still like leave questions to be answered while also giving like actual answers. You know, I don't know. Like you can do the best. You can have your cake and eat it too in the circumstances.
Well, what did you think about Rey's parents not being nothing? Like they're
Being
not
nothing.
Huh?
I thought Rey's parents were nothing. I thought that was one of the big points last year.
No, like they're not. She's not like a Kenobi or a Skywalker.
I expected that and liked that. There were parts of Last Jedi that I liked. Last Jedi criticism.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You have one that's boiling up within you.
Yeah, Princess Leia can breathe in the vacuum of space.
No!
Are you sure?
No, that's not what happens.
It was kind of
Okay, well she can survive in the vacuum of space for longer than like 45 seconds, which I don't think is canonically happening.
Yeah, because she's a Force user. And
Okay.
They didn't establish that.
And that is the biggest point that people have brought up is that she is a Force user. She is a Force adept. She has the ability to access the Force. Yes, that is true, but in order to actually use Force techniques, you have to train them.
Yeah.
And unless you have trained your body to withstand the vacuum of space, you can be Darth Yoda and you will immediately you'll die. Like that's you might transcend and become one with the Force if you decide to meditate super quick and just like
you're bringing in a bunch of expanded universe stuff.
I'd like to add. That actually comes to my point. I'd like to add on to Reese's point. The part that really explains Leia being a Force user is in the extended universe that Disney invalidated.
No,
there's no case for her being in.
No, there is a basis for her to be using the Force. It's in the...
They vaguely mention it in Return of the Jedi.
And 30 years has passed since Return of the Jedi. Surely at some point, Luke has taught her some tricks. And Luke is...
It'd be nice to have at least one mention of that. I mean, it's just like a side
You
comment.
can assume it because you're an adult. You can assume it.
I don't know, man. That's why it's like
I'm an adult, so I can assume that the space wizard has these powers.
Right.
Okay, but listen to the whole sentence. You can assume whatever you want.
I assume that for the last 30 years that Leia has been leading the rebellion, right? Has actually been like being a diplomat and being a politician, which. Throughout the extended universe that has apparently now been aborted, which is another issue that we should talk about, abortion.
You really want to talk about abortion?
I'm mad pro-choice. You don't even know.
All right. Okay.
But yeah. Okay. So, I like the Force, like it manifests. That's one thing that I've always me personally found very beautiful about the Force is that it manifests itself in so many different ways, right? And it can manifest itself beautifully subtle, and her manifestation of Force power was an acclimacy towards politics and being able to influence people and basically persuasion, getting the right thing done when the wrong
She's the non-violent side of the Force.
Yeah, she wanted, and that's what I found so beautiful about her being the opposite of Luke, right? Is they were this brother and sister. You had Luke, who was the powerhouse, lightsaber wielding, warrior of the Force, and then you had her, who was the loving, charismatic, I'm gonna, I guess put my ideals on the line for the Force kind of thing.
Okay, well, think about it.
It's she wasn't supposed to be the warrior archetype, and they forced her.
Well, she's not a warrior. She protects herself, which I think.
Doesn't she kill a spaceship in space with her body?
No.
Okay. I don't remember exactly.
That was Holdo, but she's the spaceship.
Okay.
Okay, so Leia using the Force in that scene. You know how how people can have surges of adrenaline where they get super strength?
And that's fair. That's the only real legitimate excuse I could consider for. But again, it would be a survival technique.
Yeah. Also,
she would not have survived.
People can survive in the vacuum of space
for 26
seconds,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
So if she had 26 seconds to form a force bubble around her and then push herself slightly through, I don't think that's
not
that impressive, really.
Well, let's get to now. Chandler's going to pick apart your favorite movie, Cass. I would just
Favorite movie. Okay.
I would just like to favorite Star Wars movie. I would just like to say that completely invalidating and removing the victories achieved in Return of the Jedi to get back to the Empire versus Rebellion trope, so to speak, completely invalidates and just makes light of the sacrifice and effort of the entire original trilogy.
Yes, but that's not how stories work, and that's not how civilization works. Sometimes the bad guys win.
Well, if that's how civilization works, the Galactic Alliance is really bad at running a civilization.
Yes! That's the whole point!
That seems fair, actually.
No, I didn't even agree on that. Maybe they shouldn't be in charge. They do a really bad job. They do a really bad job.
Yeah, no.
I honestly am not if you were like a citizen in the Star Wars universe, I think I would be pretty pro Empire.
I would be too.
Like, I don't see why. Like, I would probably try to work for
unless you lived on Alderaan, you probably don't hate the Empire.
Well, okay, but look at this isn't an argument. Well, it's an argument, but it's not like I'm not negating what you said. Like in the Phantom Menace, one of the more beautiful scenes is when Anakin is talking to Queen Amidala as she's disguised as a handmaiden, and she's like, "Slavery is illegal. How are you possibly slaves?" And they're like, "The Republic doesn't exist out here.
Right.
You guys are worthless." And that's a really poignant scene talking about the breakdown of the power of the Republic, of their influence. And
it's not really there.
The Empire had power,
and it speaks to how the Empire could take power. And there's a lot of really beautiful stuff in the prequels. Don't misunderstand me.
Sure.
They're just technically bad
and
movies.
see, that's what I like in hindsight. Again, like I really, really appreciate about the prequels. Right, is like there were so many unanswered questions from the original trilogy that the prequels addressed. And not only did they address them with grace and gave you concrete answers, but they gave you a lot more questions.
I don't know with grace, but I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
With a lot of money and great cartoons, they addressed these concerns and gave it across in a very visually appealing way. Pod racing.
No. And that's true. And there are, and I will admit that I'm not that type of fan. I don't need answers for everything. I like a little bit of mystery.
A little bit, right? Yeah. No, and like that's the thing is I appreciate good conjecture, right? Like I really do. But like again, like they're I just feel like they're throwing a bunch of like this is like it's like the spaghetti method, right? You're just throwing as much stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks, and then if that sticks, you're gonna take that little piece and then you're gonna run with it, right? But everything else that falls to the floor, like you don't care about it, and everyone that hates that stuff that falls to the floor, like you don't pay attention to their opinions, and that's not good. Like that's not good from a business standpoint, right? Like you want to get as many people on board as possible, and to do that, you need like quality writing, which is just
I think now is a decent time to point out something that came up in the news about 2 or 3 weeks ago, where it was revealed George Lucas's vision for a sequel trilogy. Did you guys see this?
Yeah, it was nonsense.
It was pretty crazy.
White
out there.
nonsense.
It was basically like he wanted to focus on a microverse of midichlorians. Like, remember that movie that came out forever ago, like Osmosis Jones?
yes, I loved Osmosis
He
Jones.
wanted that, but with midichlorians.
Really?
Yes. Is that an apt way to put it?
Honestly, like what he said, yes. That is what he said. I can't imagine that's what he meant.
No, I can't either. But that's essentially what he said.
But that's what he said, yeah.
Okay, I would be alright. Is this like George Lucas's interpretation?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
like,
where he wanted to take the sequels.
I still feel like
It's interesting.
Yeah, no, and this is George Lucas's baby. Like I really do feel like anything that he says has got to be like from the mouth of God. Like these are the 10 Commandments written in stone, right? Like if he says it, that's Star Wars. Like,
Right. I agree with that.
Not, do that.
I agree with that. Well, so we'll probably wrap up. Starting to get close to wrapping up. I think we can point out maybe one or two more. Just we can nitpick that just war crime of a movie a little bit more.
I want to rewatch it.
Yeah, you need to rewatch it a little bit, especially because we're going to do 2 more episodes about it, and we're going to confront these Last Jedi apologists, and we're going to eradicate them for the sake of the Empire.
Sounds like the right thing to do. So are we signing off pretty soon? Is that
What? Probably. We're getting close to the hour mark.
We do want to dip a little bit back into local news, but continue. We'll get back into that.
Yeah. We've kind of set it up right now. It's where we want to cover basically every other podcast. One podcast we're going to do podcast kind of about nerddom, and then we're going to kind of go back into local news and politics.
Okay.
So we're kind of split up our attention.
I should definitely get more on. I'm gonna talk to that Anna girl, see if she'd like to come on.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, if you're down.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about that off mic just because we haven't gotten her confirmed yet. But Reese knows some heavy hitters that we could get on the podcast.
Yeah, people like you guys will have a great conversation actually.
Should.
So yeah, I think we could save the rest of our Last Jedi. I assume at the
That
pod.
is a creepy.
I know it's so zoomed in. Yeah.
I mean, like I like it when it's in color, but like the
the negative colorization is really upsetting.
Well, they were talking about my background. It was a real zoomed in photo of my daughter in black and white because it was on my lock screen. But yeah, I think now's a decent place to sign off. We got plenty more to talk about. I don't know. We'll probably do about 3 or 4 podcasts. This is just the first one. We will convince Cass that he's wrong. It might just take some time. We are going to have still talking to some bigger guests. It's just been kind of difficult. We're kind of all busy doing other stuff. And we wish we could podcast full time, but we aren't. But yeah, Reese will be a mainstay. We'll probably start switching off between. Ideally, we want to do all 3 of us because I think this flowed really well. But there will be times where Cass can't do it or Reese can't do it. And I would say I can't do it, but let's be honest. I'll probably be on most of these. Thank you for listening, everybody. And we'll come back to you with more Star Wars. And we will answer more questions. We'll talk about, I think it'll be important on the next one to talk about where we think 9 is going. I think some speculation will be fun. And, we'll finally nail that dastardly Cass. We'll get him. Thanks for listening, everyone.
idea.
Bye.